Welcome to Modernization Monday. Over the course of our 4 Modernization Monday sessions, we were looking at the most important steps organizations are taking to modernize their data ecosystems. Today's session is about architecture modernization. We know your time is valuable, so we're going to pack as much information as we can into 15 or 20 minutes on today's topic, architecture modernization. Specifically, looking at approaches like data fabric and data mesh and what we're hearing from the industry, from analysts and the market about adoption and the role they play in enabling AI, analytics, and innovation. I am your host, Susan Pollack. I'm a director in product marketing here at Precisely, and I like to think that my role is about making complex things easy to understand for data professionals, and architecture modernization arguably is one of those topics. I'm joined today, very glad that Todd Henley is going to be joining us. He is the founder and principal at PaperKite Consulting. Todd, introduce yourself and thanks for being here today.
Oh, thank you so much, Sue. As Sue said, I'm the founder and principal of PaperKite.ai. So this is a consulting firm that specializes in information and AI governance. I have a lot of that in my background. However, I am currently with Layer 8 Security as well. So I'm a practice manager, kind of like a fractional chief information security officer for clients in the East Coast.
Awesome. Well, thanks for joining us, Todd. Obviously, a very broad background, and that's why I wanted Todd to be a part of this conversation. So let's get started. I'm just going to set the table a little bit, right? A few years ago, the conversation around data mesh and data fabric was framed as a debate, right? Which one's going to win? Which one is the better architecture? But what we saw in 2025 is that framing doesn't hold up. As a matter of fact, the Gartner's hype cycle says both mesh and fabric are now in what they call their trough of disillusionment. And that means the noise is fading. So does that mean the debate's over, right? Or actually the question here today, is it? Is it really over? So just to make sure we're all on the same page, let's quickly define what we mean by mesh and fabric. Data mesh is a decentralized architectural approach where domain experts own and deliver data as a product. It's about autonomy and accountability, enabling organizations to act quickly and confidently around data-driven decisions. Now, data fabric, on the other hand, is an automated data management design that leverages active metadata, AI, and orchestration to simplify and accelerate integration across ecosystems. So fabric is about automation and scalability. So are these architectures really at odds with each other? When we really pull it all together, the picture becomes clearer. Mesh and fabric aren't really competing. They're very complementary, right? Mesh provides the organizational model for scaling data product management, while fabric provides the technical foundation to integrate, automate, and govern across your enterprise. This isn't just my perspective. It's what we're seeing across the industry. In fact, recent analyst reports explicitly recommends pairing the two, fabric design plus mesh delivery, to enable self-service and governance. But preparing for these approaches is easier said than done, and that's why the conversation continues. This is where I'm going to ask Todd to jump in here and help us flesh out this topic. Todd, the debate between mesh and fabric then isn't about winners and losers, is it? Right? I think organizations really care about what these approaches can do for them, and that brings us to market reality. Do you think people are really hung up on mesh versus fabric and what it means?
Only those who are highly pedantic are really worried about the difference between mesh and fabric. Most people, are in a position where they have to actually make stuff work, right? So, having a very tight-knit, grasp on ideological purity on any of these architectural approaches is not really serving organizations well. So what I've experienced and what I see from my peers is that, we're not really focusing too much on, the label and focusing more on the capability, right? And what we're seeing in terms of approaches from different vendors is that, none of them, really embody either approach, either holistically or to the exclusivity of any other approach. So yes, it's good that Gartner has or a lot of standards standards organizations are looking at them and saying, yes, it's a good idea to pair them because they are really two very different concepts. But in terms of putting a label to it, most people that I know, most organizations are really looking at the capabilities as opposed to what the label, really tells you the capabilities are.
You know what? We're here the same thing. Most organizations don't care about that label, right? It's really more
Right.
about the use case that they have and trying to solve their problem. So sometimes it's a domain level solution, and sometimes they're able to look at it more from a metadata driven foundation for the specific
Right.
use cases they're looking for. So the
Mhm.
words matter less than the outcome. So I guess you got to put those words out there to at least have, the discussion, right?
Sure.
Um, I want to be practical though, because no one can just go buy a data mesh. There's no data mesh in a box or data fabric off the shelf. But we see a lot of vendors positioning themselves that way. When you hear those claims, what really should organizations be looking for?
Yeah, the things that I would look for is, first off, what are the capabilities that are being offered? When someone says, it's a data mesh product, or someone says that it's a data fabric product, what is their overall approach to providing that capability? When you're looking at data mesh, are you actually providing the right metadata management capabilities? Are you providing the capability for domain ownership and domain expertise to be applied to specific data sets that are forming data products? That was one of the things that I really appreciated about Precisely's approach, was that it made it so that the meta model was flexible enough, so that you could start to manage data products, and this was a lot sooner than a lot of other vendors were actually approaching it. And they Precisely wasn't even really calling it data mesh at the time. It was just, hey, here's a way that you could customize your product to work from a data mesh approach. When you're talking about data fabric, are you talking about the difference in approach between a collect or a connect model, right? If you're talking about like Denodo or something like that, you're really talking about data virtualization with a strong semantic layer in the background, and you're virtualizing the data, and you're, instead of bringing it all in one collection, you're connecting people to that data, versus Microsoft's Fabric approach, where they're really collecting data in a type of medallion architecture, and they're providing the analysis capabilities, where your collected data is. So there's a difference of approach, and you have to understand what that difference is. And when you're working with data mesh and data fabric, you have to be able to draw those connections in, using your metadata management layer, your semantic layer capabilities. So you really have to be careful, when or not necessarily careful, but mindful of the approach that each vendor is taking in providing those capabilities, and saying, oh, can I create some holistic solution that includes both, mesh and fabric at the same time? And when you're talking about, artificial intelligence, these are perfect use cases. Artificial intelligence provides a product, something that can be productized, based on productized data. And these capabilities, when you're joining a mesh and fabric approach together, based on whatever approach, that vendor is using, that makes it perfect for applying to things like data products that are being applied to, AI driven products, right?
That, you know what, that's a great point. And I think one of the things you're saying is all depends on context, right?
Sure.
Organizations get a lot further when they stop looking for that silver bullet, right, and instead build around
Right.
core capabilities that are interoperable. I think that's what we're seeing
Mhm.
in the market, is that interoperability is so important. So if
Right.
it's not a single product, and I haven't seen anyone that's got it all, Precisely does
Mhm.
not have it all, what are the core capabilities that organizations should focus on? How would you prioritize those things for you,
Yeah.
if you were setting that up, Todd?
Yeah. Data integration, metadata management, semantic layers, flexibility in your governance approach. All of these are core capabilities that are required, specifically from a data mesh perspective, because, you are looking at, distributed governance. You're looking at domain-centric, expertise, subject matter expertise that are being applied to data products, at the business unit level. So you really want to make sure that you have that governance flexibility. You do want to make sure that you can connect to a very well managed semantic layer that is getting you to the data that you need to create the data products that you need, and manage the data products that you need to apply them to, if you're going down the route of artificial intelligence, you need to be able to apply that to AI specific products. So those are really the core capabilities that you need, regardless of the approach of data fabric, whether it's a collect or connect model. At that point, it's not, as material, but you do need to make sure that your semantic layer is able to be maintained depending on the fabric approach, right?
That makes sense. So actually, what I'm hearing is that investing in integration across complex systems, and I think we need to keep in mind that that means IBM, SAP,
Right.
across the cloud, across hybrid architectures. That's all important. Um, I'm going to say something that is probably old hat these days. Metadata is the new oil, right?
Right.
Commit to a metadata strategy, whether it's connect or whether it's connect or collect. That's the fuel for discovery and automation for a successful future.
Absolutely.
Look for flexibility in your governance solution. So whether it's centralized, whether it's federated, AI model governance is something everyone's talking about these days. So you need
Right.
something that's very flexible there. And actually, I'm going to bring up another concept that I want to make sure we talk about is that prioritizing self-service and automation.
Absolutely.
Because business users are expecting that immediacy these days, right? They don't have 3 weeks to wait for things to turn around.
Yes.
As a matter of fact, I heard a story about a CIO that always got head nods when they were saying, we're putting in a data mesh and who's responsible for this piece and this piece and this piece. And when
Mhm.
he asked about the data products and how to get at them, crickets, right? Nothing.
Right.
So,
Right.
yeah, I think that's the final bow around everything is it's early moving towards self-service and automation. And
Yes, and marketplaces are really kind of the core to that. I mean, it's a core capability for self-service, and depending on what approach that you're taking, or what vendor you're selecting, we had a lot of success with using Precisely to be able to create a marketplace, or at least a proto marketplace, to help with self-service. So that's one of the core tenets of a data mesh. If you're looking at it from an ideologically pure approach of data mesh, being able to have some semblance of a marketplace to help support self-service is an absolute core capability.
great, great. And I do want to say Precisely definitely is in a position where we have software, data, and consulting services to help support put this together. And I know that's where we've worked with Todd.
Absolutely.
With the growth in AR, AI capabilities and our agents and our solutions, our goal is to empower organizations and consumers to do them faster and with greater insights with a lower level of expertise, right? It's not just
Mhm.
the data science experts that can get their hands on this anymore.
Right.
So the bottom line is this: it's just that it's more the debate isn't over, right? The debate is not over. It's more complex as organizations prepare for them, and that's why the conversations like this are so valuable. And I want to thank you for it. So we got to ground in
Thank you.
theory what's really practical and what delivers value. Todd, before I let you go, I have what I call our lightning round. I have 3 quick questions. And again, we wanted this to be power packed, get as much information in as little time as possible. I want to hit you
Sure.
with 3 quick questions. First one is, what's the biggest thing that happened in 2025 in this market that you didn't expect or that we didn't expect?
I think the biggest one that a lot of people didn't expect, largely because there weren't a lot of signals that these were going to happen, but a lot of market consolidation, vendor consolidation. When you're looking at like the Salesforce, ServiceNow, acquisition, that was something that a lot of people didn't see. And I think a lot of the capabilities that ServiceNow was bringing, especially with their GRC capabilities and plus, their CMDB, their very mature CMDB capabilities. I think a lot of folks just did not see that coming because there weren't a lot of market signals. But that's not the only consolidation. There are some very big moves in 2025. Also, those were not foreseen until they were announced. So there's a lot of surprises, and I think we probably will see some more of that coming up toward the end of the year, plus into
Hmm.
2026.
See, this is why it's worth watching. What does Todd know that we don't know? But you're right. Um, wh- what didn't happen in 2025 that you thought the market was expecting or that you were expecting?
Yeah. So one of the things that we haven't seen yet, which we probably will as time progresses, is the deprecation of a lot of more simplistic software. When you're looking at kind of like a Foursquare product management, there are these simple and complex, and or simple and fewer users in the bottom left, or I should go over here. And on the top right is, the more and more complex, more users you have. And the ones that are more simple and less complex are the ones, the applications that are going to be swallowed up by AI generated, applications, that are, pretty simple. You just put your parameters in for what you want an application to do. And a lot of these tools will spit out the code for you, and all you have to do is basically is just run it. So you have these very
Mhm.
small applications that agentic AI is largely going to be taking over. So we're going to see a lot of market shift in vendors that create a lot of these small applications that have a very small specific user base. Hasn't happened quite yet, but I think once people get more of a taste for how to build these small, less complex, small user base applications. Once they figure that out, we'll see a lot of market decay, in those areas. But for the larger, more complex applications, like data integrity suite, these things are not simple, and they're built to scale. So what we're going to see is a little bit more helpers for, some of those, larger, scalable, applications that are generated with artificial intelligence. So we're going to see a little bit of consolidation there for the applications that help other applications, that are a little bit more simplistic, you know,
And I
supporting
know
the
that's
more
part of what
complex
we're
ones.
working on right now. The Data Integrity Suite has just announced all the agents that we're bringing into the suite to do
Sure.
exactly what you're talking about.
Right.
Uh, we need to make sure that it is user friendly, simple, less
Right.
complex, so people can talk in natural language and get the work done that they need done easier and
Absolutely.
faster. Yeah.
Yep, absolutely. It hasn't been Armageddon yet, but we'll see some large scale changes in the small scale space.
Last question. What do you expect to happen in 2026? Is there anything in particular that you know for sure, not for sure, that you're saying this is going to be the biggest trend in 2026?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it's cliche to say it, but if your AI initiatives aren't paying attention to the data that's feeding it, you're gonna lose. It's just an accomplished fact. So what we're going to see much more in 26 is like a dawning realization of, oh, all these things that the vendors and the data management professionals have been telling us for decades is going to become much more apparent to leadership, the leadership layer of many organizations across the globe. If it hasn't become important, before it'll certainly become important or much more important. So more focus on data management, more focus on very well designed data management tools, as key enablers for initiatives that are going to either, improve competitive parity with other organizations, all the way to creating entirely new business models by using or reusing, repurposing data that you already had, or data that is relatively easily acquired through some pipelines that are made available through some AI services. So we're going to see a much tighter focus on data through 2026 than we saw even in 2025, which was pretty much bellwether to begin with.
So data, data, data.
Yes, yes.
All
Couldn't
right.
have said it better.
I'm so eloquent, right?
That's all
That's a
right.
perfect way to end, Todd. Thank you so much for sharing your perspective.
Thank
Hopefully,
you.
we've shown you that while the debate isn't over, there are some very real steps that you can take to prepare your data strategy for modern architectures or whatever comes next. Um, we promised to pack as much as we could into 15 or 20 minutes. Our time's up now. Be sure to visit Precisely website to learn more about data modernization. And in particular, if you'd like to re-listen or share this recording, or if you'd like this snapshot format and you missed our other sessions and want to learn more, they're all on demand right here with up-to-minute trends and best practices on our other modernization topics. Legacy system modernization, cloud modernization, process automation, as well as our architecture modernization session that we had here. That's it for today. Once again, thank you, Todd, and thank you all for joining us.
Yeah.
Have a real good rest of your day.